Question 1. Risk assessment procedures indicate that a critical financial transaction application hosted on a VMware HCI cluster is experiencing intermittent performance degradation, leading to increased transaction processing times and occasional timeouts. Initial investigation suggests potential issues with the underlying storage subsystem. What is the most appropriate approach to diagnose and resolve this performance degradation? Option A. Systematically analyze storage I/O metrics, HCI data store performance, and specific VM disk configurations to identify latency or throughput bottlenecks, correlating findings with application behavior, and then implementing targeted adjustments to HCI storage policies or VM disk provisioning. Option B. Apply a blanket deduplication and compression setting across all HCI data stores to reduce storage overhead, hoping to improve overall performance. Option C. Immediately initiate a full rollback of the VMware HCI cluster to its previous stable configuration to restore application performance, assuming the recent HCI upgrade is the cause. Option D. Focus exclusively on tuning the financial transaction application's database and code, as performance issues are often application-specific. The correct answer is A. Systematically analyze storage I/O metrics, HCI data store performance, and specific VM disk configurations to identify latency or throughput bottlenecks, correlating findings with application behavior, and then implementing targeted adjustments to HCI storage policies or VM disk provisioning. Explanation: Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common implementation challenge in VMware HCI environments where a critical application's performance is degraded post-migration. The challenge lies in accurately diagnosing the root cause within a complex, multi-layered infrastructure, network, storage, compute, application, while adhering to strict operational and potentially regulatory requirements for application availability and data integrity. The pressure to restore service quickly can lead to hasty decisions, increasing the risk of further disruption or non-compliance. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach emphasizes a systematic, data-driven investigation. This aligns with best professional practices for IT service management and incident response, often codified in ITIL frameworks and organizational policies. By isolating the issue to a specific component, e.g., storage I/O latency, and then correlating it with specific HCI configuration parameters, e.g., disk tiering, deduplication settings, the team can pinpoint the exact cause. This methodical approach ensures that changes are targeted, reversible, and validated, minimizing the risk of unintended consequences. It also supports auditability and compliance by providing a clear trail of investigation and resolution. Incorrect approaches analysis. One incorrect approach involves immediately reverting the entire HCI cluster to a previous state without a thorough diagnosis. This is a high-risk strategy that can lead to data loss or corruption if the rollback is not handled perfectly. It also fails to address the underlying issue, which will likely recur. From a regulatory perspective, such a broad, unvalidated action could violate change management policies and potentially data integrity requirements if not properly documented and approved. Another incorrect approach is to focus solely on the application layer without considering the underlying infrastructure. While application-level tuning might offer temporary relief, it fails to address the root cause if the problem stems from HCI performance bottlenecks. This can lead to wasted effort and prolonged downtime, potentially violating service-level agreements, SLAs, and demonstrating a lack of due diligence in troubleshooting. A third incorrect approach is to implement a broad, untested configuration change across the entire HCI cluster based on anecdotal evidence or a single symptom. This shotgun approach is prone to introducing new problems or exacerbating existing ones. It bypasses proper testing and validation procedures, which are often mandated by regulatory frameworks to ensure system stability and security. Professional reasoning. Professionals should employ a structured incident management framework. This involves 1. Identifying and prioritizing the incident. 2. Diagnosing the root cause through systematic data collection and analysis, involving all relevant stakeholders. 3. Developing and testing potential solutions in a controlled environment. 4. Implementing the chosen solution with proper change control and rollback plans. 5. Verifying the resolution and documenting the entire process. This approach ensures efficiency, minimizes risk, and maintains compliance with operational and regulatory standards. Question 2. Market research demonstrates that a critical financial trading application is experiencing intermittent latency spikes and transaction failures following its migration to a VMware vSphere with Tanzu HCI environment. The application team reports a significant degradation in performance compared to its previous bare metal deployment. The IT operations team is under pressure to restore full functionality immediately. Which of the following approaches represents the most professional and compliant method for addressing this implementation challenge? Option A. Proactively adjust vSAN storage policies, such as increasing stripe width and changing cache reservation, to potentially improve I/O performance without consulting application owners. Option B. Immediately roll back the application to its previous bare metal infrastructure while a separate team investigates the HCI environment. Option C. Focus exclusively on network troubleshooting and latency analysis, assuming the HCI storage layer is functioning as expected. Option D. Conduct a comprehensive diagnostic analysis of the VMware vSAN health, storage I/O control, and virtual machine performance metrics, correlating findings with application logs and resource utilization before proposing any remediation. Correct answer is B. Immediately roll back the application to its previous bare metal infrastructure while a separate team investigates the HCI environment. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common implementation challenge in VMware HCI environments where a critical application's performance is degrading post-migration. The challenge lies in isolating the root cause within a complex integrated infrastructure, balancing the need for rapid resolution with the imperative to avoid further disruption or noncompliance. The pressure to restore service quickly can lead to hasty decisions that overlook critical diagnostic steps or regulatory considerations. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a systematic, data-driven investigation. This aligns with best professional practices for IT service management and, by extension, regulatory compliance frameworks that emphasize due diligence, risk management, and proper change control. Specifically, it involves leveraging VMware vSAN health checks and performance metrics, correlating them with application-level logs and resource utilization. This methodical approach ensures that any remediation is based on factual evidence, minimizing the risk of introducing new issues and demonstrating a commitment to maintaining service integrity, which is often a tacit or explicit requirement in service-level agreements and industry best practices. Incorrect approach is analysis. One incorrect approach involves immediately reverting the application to its previous environment without thorough investigation. This is professionally unsound because it bypasses the opportunity to understand and fix the underlying issue, potentially leading to repeated problems. From a regulatory perspective, this could be seen as a failure to adequately manage IT risks and implement robust problem resolution processes, especially if the migration was part of a planned upgrade or compliance initiative. Another incorrect approach is to unilaterally adjust vSAN storage policies without consulting application owners or understanding the application's specific I/O patterns. This is a significant regulatory and ethical failure. It violates principles of change management and can lead to unintended consequences, impacting application stability and data integrity. Such actions could breach service-level agreements and demonstrate a lack of due diligence, potentially leading to penalties or reputational damage if data loss or corruption occurs. A third incorrect approach is to focus solely on network troubleshooting, assuming the HCI storage is functioning optimally. While network issues can impact performance, neglecting the HCI infrastructure itself is a failure to conduct a comprehensive root cause analysis. This can lead to prolonged downtime and missed opportunities to identify and resolve HCI-specific performance bottlenecks, which is a direct contravention of professional IT service delivery standards and could violate compliance mandates related to system availability and performance. Professional reasoning. Professionals should adopt a structured problem-solving methodology. This involves clearly defining the problem, gathering data from all relevant systems, HCI, network, application, analyzing the data to identify potential causes, testing hypotheses systematically, implementing solutions with proper change control, and verifying the resolution. In situations involving critical applications, communication with stakeholders and adherence to established ITIL or similar frameworks are paramount. Regulatory compliance is not an afterthought but an integral part of this process, ensuring that all actions are documented, justified, and minimize risk. Question 3. System analysis indicates that a VMware HCI environment supporting critical business operations requires a hardware refresh. The primary objective is to migrate workloads to new, more performant hardware with minimal disruption to end users and zero data loss. The existing environment is running on older generation hardware, and the new environment will utilize the latest VMware vSphere and vSen versions. What is the most professionally sound and compliant approach to execute this hardware refresh? Option A. Schedule a maintenance window, power down all virtual machines, perform a full backup of all data, and then migrate the virtual machines to the new HCI cluster. Option B. Implement a phased migration strategy, leveraging VMware vMotion to move virtual machines to the new HCI cluster in small, manageable batches, with thorough validation of each batch before proceeding to the next, and ensuring the old hardware remains operational until the entire migration is successfully validated. Option C. Immediately begin migrating all virtual machines to the new HCI cluster using a bulk migration tool, and then power down the old hardware once the migration tool reports completion, without extensive post-migration validation on the new hardware. Option D. Migrate only the non-critical virtual machines to the new HCI cluster first, and then, after a brief testing period, decommission the old hardware to expedite the deployment of the new infrastructure. The correct answer is A. Schedule a maintenance window, power down all virtual machines, perform a full backup of all data, and then migrate the virtual machines to the new HCI cluster. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common implementation challenge in VMware HCI environments, ensuring data integrity and availability during a planned infrastructure upgrade. A professional challenge lies in balancing the need for minimal downtime and service disruption with the absolute requirement to prevent data loss or corruption. The complexity arises from the distributed nature of HCI, where data is spread across multiple nodes, and the potential for cascading failures if a migration or upgrade process is not meticulously planned and executed. The pressure to complete the upgrade quickly can lead to shortcuts, which in a regulated environment can have severe compliance and operational consequences. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a phased, non-disruptive migration strategy. This aligns with best professional practices for critical infrastructure management, emphasizing risk mitigation and service continuity. Specifically, leveraging VMware vMotion for live migration of virtual machines to a staging cluster or a subset of the new hardware before decommissioning the old hardware is paramount. This method ensures that applications remain accessible to users throughout the migration process. Furthermore, performing a thorough validation of data integrity and application functionality on the new infrastructure asterisk before asterisk fully decommissioning the old environment is a critical step. This aligns with general IT best practices for change management and disaster recovery preparedness, indirectly supporting regulatory compliance by ensuring business continuity and data resilience. While specific regulations for 5v0-21 are not provided, the underlying principles of data protection and service availability are universally recognized in professional IT operations and are often implicitly or explicitly covered by broader compliance frameworks related to data security and operational resilience. Incorrect approaches analysis. An approach that involves a Big Bang migration, shutting down all services and migrating all VMs simultaneously, is professionally unacceptable. This carries an extremely high risk of extended downtime, potential data corruption due to abrupt service termination, and significant business impact. From a regulatory perspective, such an approach could violate service-level agreements, SLAs, and potentially breach data protection regulations if data is compromised or inaccessible for extended periods. Another incorrect approach would be to migrate VMs without adequate pre-migration testing or post-migration validation. This bypasses essential quality assurance steps and significantly increases the risk of application failures or data inconsistencies on the new platform. This failure to validate can lead to operational disruptions and, in regulated industries, could be seen as a failure to exercise due diligence in protecting data and ensuring operational integrity, potentially contravening compliance requirements related to data accuracy and system reliability. Finally, decommissioning the old hardware before confirming the complete and successful operation of all migrated workloads on the new infrastructure is a critical error. This eliminates the fallback option in case of unforeseen issues, directly jeopardizing data recovery and service restoration capabilities. This directly contravenes principles of robust disaster recovery and business continuity planning, which are often mandated or strongly implied by regulatory frameworks focused on operational resilience and data integrity. Professional reasoning. Professionals must adopt a risk-based approach to infrastructure changes. This involves a thorough assessment of potential impacts, the development of detailed migration plans with rollback strategies, and rigorous testing at each stage. The decision-making process should prioritize data integrity, service availability, and compliance with any applicable operational standards or regulations. When faced with upgrade scenarios, the default should always be non-disruptive methods, with any deviation requiring explicit justification and comprehensive risk mitigation plans. The ability to demonstrate a structured, controlled, and validated migration process is key to professional accountability and maintaining trust in the IT infrastructure. Question 4. Risk assessment procedures indicate that a new VMware HCI solution is being considered for deployment to enhance operational efficiency. However, initial vendor discussions suggest that while the solution offers advanced features, its specific adherence to the organization's established security baselines and the regulatory framework of the relevant jurisdiction has not been formally validated. The business unit is eager for rapid deployment. What is the most appropriate course of action for the IT professional responsible for this deployment? Option A. Proceed with the deployment, prioritizing the business unit's need for speed and address any potential compliance issues post-implementation. Option B. Conduct a comprehensive security and compliance review of the proposed HCI solution against organizational policies and the specific regulatory requirements of the jurisdiction before proceeding with any deployment activities. Option C. Perform a superficial review of the vendor's documentation and security features, focusing only on aspects directly related to the core HCI functionality, and then proceed with deployment. Option D. Rely solely on the vendor's claims of compliance and their provided documentation, assuming the solution meets all necessary regulatory standards. The correct answer is A. Proceed with the deployment, prioritizing the business unit's need for speed, and address any potential compliance issues post-implementation. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in VMware HCI environments where rapid technological adoption can outpace formal risk assessment and compliance validation. The professional is tasked with integrating a new HCI solution without a clear understanding of its adherence to established security baselines and regulatory requirements. This creates a tension between the business need for innovation and the imperative to maintain a secure and compliant infrastructure. The challenge lies in balancing the speed of deployment with the due diligence required to mitigate potential risks and avoid regulatory breaches. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a proactive and thorough validation of the new HCI solution against the organization's established security policies and relevant regulatory frameworks. This includes verifying that the solution's architecture, configuration options, and operational procedures align with the security controls mandated by the applicable jurisdiction. For example, if the jurisdiction mandates specific data protection standards, e.g., GDPR in the UK, HIPAA in the US, the professional must confirm the HCI solution supports these requirements. This approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes risk mitigation and compliance, ensuring that new technologies are deployed in a manner that protects sensitive data and avoids legal or financial penalties. It demonstrates a commitment to responsible technology adoption and adherence to professional ethical standards. Incorrect approaches analysis. Deploying the HCI solution without a formal security and compliance review is a significant regulatory and ethical failure. It bypasses critical risk assessment processes, potentially exposing the organization to data breaches, unauthorized access, or non-compliance with industry-specific regulations. This approach demonstrates a disregard for due diligence and a prioritization of speed over security and compliance. Implementing the solution with only a cursory review of vendor documentation without independent validation against organizational policies and regulatory mandates is also professionally unacceptable. Vendor documentation may not fully address the specific compliance needs of the organization or the nuances of the local regulatory landscape. This approach risks overlooking critical security gaps or compliance requirements, leading to potential future issues. Relying solely on the vendor's assurance of compliance without independent verification is another failure. While vendor attestations are valuable, they are not a substitute for an organization's own responsibility to ensure compliance within its specific operating environment and under its governing regulations. This approach outsources a critical risk management function, which is a breach of professional responsibility. Professional reasoning. Professionals in this field must adopt a risk-based approach to technology integration. This involves 1. Understanding the regulatory landscape, identifying all applicable laws, regulations, and industry standards relevant to the organization's operations and data. 2. Defining security baselines, establishing clear security requirements and controls that all deployed technologies must meet. 3. Conducting thorough due diligence, evaluating new solutions against these baselines and regulatory mandates, including independent testing and validation where necessary. 4. Documenting findings and decisions, maintaining records of risk assessments, compliance checks, and any decisions made regarding the deployment of new technologies. 5. Continuous monitoring, implementing ongoing processes to ensure that deployed solutions remain compliant and secure over time. Question 5. Operational review demonstrates that a critical production VMware HCI cluster is experiencing intermittent performance degradation. To expedite troubleshooting and identify the root cause, a junior administrator proposes directly accessing sensitive customer data logs within the HCI environment without explicit authorization or a formal data access request, citing the urgency of the situation. As the VMware HCI Master Specialist, what is the most appropriate course of action? Option A. Escalate the situation to management and request immediate, unrestricted access to all logs to ensure rapid resolution, deferring detailed policy review until after the issue is resolved. Option B. Advise the junior administrator to proceed with accessing the logs, but to delete any sensitive information immediately after the troubleshooting is complete. Option C. Proceed with direct access to the sensitive customer data logs as proposed by the junior administrator to quickly diagnose and resolve the performance issue. Option D. Follow established data access and handling protocols, including obtaining necessary approvals and ensuring data anonymization or pseudonymization where possible, even if it means a slight delay in initial troubleshooting. The correct answer is D. Follow established data access and handling protocols, including obtaining necessary approvals and ensuring data anonymization or pseudonymization where possible, even if it means a slight delay in initial troubleshooting. Explanation. This scenario presents an ethical dilemma common in IT environments, particularly concerning data privacy and security within a VMware HCI Master Specialist role. The challenge lies in balancing the immediate need for operational efficiency and troubleshooting with the long-term implications of data handling and regulatory compliance. The professional must navigate potential conflicts between business objectives and their ethical and regulatory obligations. The correct approach prioritizes adherence to established data handling policies and regulatory frameworks, even if it introduces a slight delay in immediate problem resolution. This aligns with best professional practice by upholding data privacy principles, maintaining system integrity, and ensuring compliance with relevant regulations. Specifically, in the context of the 5V0-21 VMware HCI Master Specialist exam, this implies following the documented procedures for accessing and handling sensitive data, which are implicitly governed by the principles of data minimization, purpose limitation, and security as mandated by general IT best practices and potentially specific industry regulations. Though no specific jurisdiction is provided, the principles are universal. An incorrect approach that involves bypassing established protocols for expediency would represent a significant ethical and regulatory failure. This could lead to unauthorized access or disclosure of sensitive data, violating principles of data privacy, and potentially breaching contractual obligations or legal statutes related to data protection. Such actions undermine trust, expose the organization to legal repercussions, and damage professional reputation. Another incorrect approach, such as ignoring the potential for data exposure altogether, demonstrates a lack of due diligence and a failure to proactively identify and mitigate risks, which is a core responsibility of a specialist. The professional decision-making process should involve a risk-based assessment. When faced with a situation where operational needs might conflict with data privacy, the professional should first consult existing policies and procedures. If ambiguity exists, seeking guidance from legal, compliance, or senior management is crucial. The default should always be to err on the side of caution and prioritize data protection and regulatory compliance, even if it requires additional steps or a temporary slowdown. This proactive and principled stance is fundamental to maintaining professional integrity and organizational security. Question 6. Cost-benefit analysis shows that implementing a less secure third-party integration for critical VMware HCI component would significantly reduce immediate operational expenses. However, this integration has known vulnerabilities that could expose sensitive customer data if exploited, and it does not fully align with the data protection guidelines mandated by the relevant regulatory framework for this jurisdiction. The alternative, more robust and compliant integration, is considerably more expensive upfront but offers superior security and full regulatory adherence. What is the most ethically and professionally responsible course of action? Option A. Propose a hybrid approach where the cheaper integration is used for non-sensitive data, while the more expensive option is reserved for critical data, without a comprehensive analysis of data classification and access controls. Option B. Advocate for the more expensive, secure, and compliant integration, clearly articulating the long-term risks and potential regulatory penalties associated with the cheaper option. Option C. Proceed with the cheaper, less secure integration, assuming that the risk of exploitation is low and that the cost savings are paramount for the organization's immediate financial health. Option D. Implement the cheaper integration but attempt to mitigate the vulnerabilities through ad hoc security patches, without formal risk assessment or regulatory review. Correct answer is B. Advocate for the more expensive, secure, and compliant integration, clearly articulating the long-term risks and potential regulatory penalties associated with the cheaper option. Explanation. The scenario presents a common ethical dilemma in IT environments where a perceived immediate cost-saving conflicts with long-term security and compliance obligations. The challenge lies in balancing operational efficiency and budget constraints against the fundamental duty to protect sensitive data and adhere to regulatory mandates. Professionals must exercise sound judgment to avoid short-sighted decisions that could lead to significant future liabilities. The correct approach prioritizes data integrity and compliance by advocating for the secure, albeit more expensive, solution. This aligns with the principles of responsible data stewardship and adherence to the VMware HCI Master Specialist's role in maintaining secure and compliant infrastructure. By choosing the solution that meets security and regulatory requirements, the professional upholds their ethical obligations and protects the organization from potential data breaches, fines, and reputational damage. This proactive stance is a hallmark of best professional practice in managing complex IT systems. An incorrect approach that dismisses the security implications due to cost would represent a failure to uphold the duty of care. This could lead to regulatory noncompliance, as many frameworks mandate specific security controls for data protection. Another incorrect approach that prioritizes the cheaper option without a thorough risk assessment would be negligent. This overlooks the potential for significant financial and reputational damage if a security incident occurs due to inadequate controls. Both these approaches demonstrate a lack of understanding of the interconnectedness of cost, security, and regulatory compliance, leading to potential ethical and professional breaches. Professionals should employ a structured decision-making process that begins with a comprehensive risk assessment. This involves identifying potential threats, vulnerabilities, and the impact of a security incident. Following this, a thorough evaluation of available solutions should consider not only cost, but also their ability to meet security requirements, regulatory obligations, and long-term operational needs. Transparency in communicating findings and recommendations to stakeholders, including potential risks associated with cost-saving measures, is crucial for informed decision-making. Question 7. Assessment of how a VMware HCI Master Specialist should ethically respond when during a performance tuning engagement, they discover a potential security vulnerability in a client's vSAN data store configuration that could allow unauthorized access to sensitive data. But the vulnerability is not actively being exploited, and the client has not explicitly requested a security audit. Option A. Report the vulnerability to a cybersecurity information sharing platform without informing the client first, to contribute to broader threat intelligence. Option B. Document the vulnerability thoroughly, present the findings to the client's designated technical contact with a clear explanation of the potential risks and impact, and propose a collaborative approach to investigate and remediate the issue. Option C. Ignore the discovered vulnerability to avoid alarming the client, and to ensure the performance tuning engagement concludes without complications, assuming it is not an active threat. Option D. Immediately implement a configuration change to mitigate the vulnerability, assuming the client would want this done to protect their data, and inform them of the action taken after the fact. The correct answer is B. Document the vulnerability thoroughly, present the findings to the client's designated technical contact with a clear explanation of the potential risks and impact, and propose a collaborative approach to investigate and remediate the issue. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common ethical dilemma in IT consulting, where a consultant discovers a potential security vulnerability in a client's VMware HCI environment during a routine performance tuning engagement. The challenge lies in balancing the consultant's duty to the client to provide accurate and complete information with the potential for alarming the client or causing undue disruption if the vulnerability is not fully understood or if its disclosure is mishandled. The consultant must consider the immediate impact on the client's operations, the potential for exploitation, and the contractual obligations. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a structured, transparent, and collaborative process. The consultant should first thoroughly document the potential vulnerability, including its nature, potential impact, and any immediate indicators. This documentation should then be presented to the client's designated technical contact or security team in a clear, concise, and non-alarmist manner. The goal is to inform the client so they can make an informed decision about remediation. This aligns with professional ethical codes that emphasize honesty, integrity, and client welfare. It also respects the client's ownership of their environment and their right to manage risks. By proposing a joint investigation and remediation plan, the consultant demonstrates a commitment to partnership and problem-solving, fostering trust and ensuring that any actions taken are aligned with the client's business objectives and risk tolerance. This approach avoids unilateral actions that could violate client trust or contractual agreements. Incorrect approaches analysis. One incorrect approach would be to immediately implement a fix or workaround without client consultation. This is a regulatory and ethical failure because it bypasses the client's authority and decision-making process. Consultant is not authorized to make changes to the client's production environment without explicit approval, which could lead to contractual breaches, unintended consequences, or even data loss. It also fails to uphold the principle of client autonomy and informed consent. Another incorrect approach is to ignore the vulnerability to avoid causing concern or to complete the engagement on time. This is a significant ethical and professional failure. It violates the duty of care owed to the client, as it knowingly withholds critical information that could expose the client to significant risk. This inaction could lead to severe security breaches, data compromise, and reputational damage for the client, for which the consultant could be held liable. It demonstrates a lack of integrity and professional responsibility. A third incorrect approach would be to disclose the vulnerability to a third party without the client's explicit consent. This is a severe breach of confidentiality and trust, and potentially a violation of data privacy regulations. Consultants are bound by strict confidentiality agreements, and any unauthorized disclosure of client information, especially sensitive security details, is professionally unacceptable and could have legal ramifications. Professional reasoning. Professionals should adopt a framework that prioritizes clear communication, documented evidence, and collaborative decision-making. When a potential issue is identified, the first step is always to gather sufficient, objective information. This information should then be presented to the client in a professional and actionable manner, outlining the potential risks and proposing a path forward. The client should always be the ultimate decision-maker regarding their environment and risk management. This approach ensures transparency, builds trust, and upholds the highest standards of professional conduct. Question 8. Comparative studies suggest that while proactive security monitoring is essential for protecting virtualized infrastructure, the methods employed must respect employee privacy. A VMware HCI master specialist discovers unusual network traffic patterns originating from an employee's virtual desktop, potentially indicating unauthorized activity or a security breach. The specialist has the technical capability to access detailed logs and network flow data associated with this virtual desktop without the employee's explicit knowledge. What is the most ethically and professionally sound course of action? Option A. Ignore the unusual traffic, assuming it is a benign anomaly, to avoid potential accusations of employee surveillance and maintain a less intrusive monitoring posture. Option B. Immediately access and analyze the employee's virtual desktop logs and network traffic data to identify the source of the unusual activity, documenting findings for potential disciplinary action or security remediation. Option C. Inform the employee about the observed unusual network traffic and request their cooperation in investigating the matter, while also consulting with the IT security team and legal department regarding data access protocols. Option D. Escalate the observation to senior management without direct investigation, allowing them to decide on the next steps for data access and employee notification. The correct answer is B. Immediately access and analyze the employee's virtual desktop logs and network traffic data to identify the source of the unusual activity, documenting findings for potential disciplinary action or security remediation. Explanation. This scenario presents an ethical dilemma common in IT environments, particularly concerning data privacy and the responsible use of technology resources. The challenge lies in balancing the organization's need for operational efficiency and security monitoring with the individual privacy rights of employees. The VMware HCI Master Specialist is expected to understand the implications of data collection and access within a virtualized infrastructure, adhering to relevant regulations and ethical guidelines. The correct approach prioritizes transparency and adherence to established organizational policies and legal frameworks governing data privacy. By informing the employee and seeking consent, the specialist upholds principles of data minimization and purpose limitation, ensuring that data is collected and used only for legitimate, specified purposes. This aligns with best practices in data protection, such as those outlined in general data privacy principles that emphasize individual rights and organizational accountability. An incorrect approach would involve covertly accessing or analyzing employee data without their knowledge or consent. This constitutes a significant breach of privacy and can lead to legal repercussions, including violations of data protection laws. Such actions erode trust within the organization and can result in disciplinary action for the specialist. Another incorrect approach might be to dismiss the concern without proper investigation, potentially overlooking a genuine security threat or a violation of policy, which demonstrates a lack of due diligence and professional responsibility. Failing to document the incident and the subsequent actions taken also represents a failure in accountability and auditability. Professionals should adopt a decision-making framework that begins with understanding the organizational policies and applicable legal requirements related to data privacy and employee monitoring. They should then assess the specific situation, considering the potential impact on individuals and the organization. If there is any ambiguity or potential for ethical or legal conflict, seeking guidance from legal counsel or a designated privacy officer is crucial. Transparency, consent, and adherence to established procedures are paramount in navigating such dilemmas. Question 9. The evaluation methodology shows that a VMware HCI Master Specialist is asked by a client to rapidly deploy a new virtualized environment. The client emphasizes speed and cost-effectiveness and has provided minimal detail regarding their specific data handling policies or regulatory obligations. The specialist identifies that the proposed HCI configuration, if deployed without further configuration and validation, could inadvertently process and store sensitive data in a manner that may not align with common data privacy frameworks. The client is eager to move forward immediately. What is the most appropriate course of action for the VMware HCI Master Specialist? Option A. Downplay the data privacy concerns to the client, assuring them that the technology is generally compliant and that minor adjustments can be made later if needed. Option B. Proceed with the deployment as planned, assuming the client will address any compliance issues post-implementation. Option C. Inform the client of the potential data privacy risks associated with the proposed configuration, and request their legal and compliance teams to review and approve the implementation plan before proceeding. Option D. Implement the HCI solution with a best-effort approach to data privacy, focusing on the client's stated priorities of speed and cost. The correct answer is B. Proceed with the deployment as planned, assuming the client will address any compliance issues post-implementation. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a professional challenge where a VMware HCI master specialist is tasked with implementing a solution that could potentially violate data privacy regulations. The core conflict lies between the client's desire for rapid deployment and the specialist's ethical and regulatory obligation to ensure compliance. The pressure to deliver quickly, coupled with the client's potential lack of understanding of the implications, requires careful judgment and a commitment to professional integrity. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves prioritizing regulatory compliance and data privacy over immediate deployment. This aligns with the principles of responsible technology implementation and professional ethics. Specifically, it upholds the spirit and letter of data protection laws by ensuring that all data handling practices are scrutinized and approved by the client's legal and compliance teams before any sensitive data is processed or stored within the HCI environment. This proactive stance prevents potential breaches, fines, and reputational damage, demonstrating best professional practice by safeguarding both the client's interests and the integrity of the data. Incorrect approaches analysis. One incorrect approach involves proceeding with the deployment without explicit confirmation of compliance. This directly violates data privacy regulations by assuming compliance rather than verifying it. It exposes the organization and the client to significant legal and financial risks, including substantial fines and potential lawsuits. Ethically, it represents a failure to act with due diligence and to uphold professional standards. Another incorrect approach is to downplay the client's concerns about data privacy and proceed with a best-effort approach to compliance. This is professionally unacceptable, as it demonstrates a lack of respect for regulatory requirements and the client's legal obligations. It creates a false sense of security and leaves the client vulnerable to non-compliance issues. It also undermines the specialist's credibility and trustworthiness. A third incorrect approach is to suggest implementing the solution and then addressing compliance issues retrospectively. This is a highly risky and irresponsible strategy. It implies that compliance is an afterthought rather than a foundational requirement. This approach significantly increases the likelihood of non-compliance, data breaches, and the need for costly remediation efforts. It is a clear ethical and regulatory failure. Professional reasoning. Professionals in this field must adopt a risk-aware and compliance-first mindset. When faced with a potential conflict between client demands and regulatory requirements, the decision-making process should involve 1. Clearly identifying the relevant regulations and their implications for the proposed solution. 2. Communicating these implications transparently to the client, including potential risks and consequences of non-compliance. 3. Seeking explicit confirmation from the client's legal and compliance departments that the proposed implementation meets all regulatory obligations. 4. Documenting all communications and decisions related to compliance. 5. Refusing to proceed with any aspect of the implementation that cannot be demonstrably compliant. Question 10. To address the challenge of optimizing VMware HCI performance using customer data, which of the following actions demonstrates the most responsible and compliant approach to data handling? Option A. Analyze the data directly, as the primary goal is technical improvement and not individual identification. Option B. Defer all data analysis until a comprehensive but potentially time-consuming legal review of all data usage scenarios is completed. Option C. Proceed with analyzing raw customer data, assuming that performance optimization benefits imply consent. Option D. Anonymize all customer data before analysis and obtain explicit consent for its use in performance tuning. The correct answer is D. Anonymize all customer data before analysis and obtain explicit consent for its use in performance tuning. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents an ethical dilemma concerning data privacy and the responsible use of customer information within a VMware HCI environment. The challenge lies in balancing the immediate business need for performance optimization with the long-term implications of potentially misusing sensitive data. The master specialist is entrusted with maintaining the integrity and security of the HCI infrastructure, which includes safeguarding customer data. A failure to adhere to privacy regulations and ethical guidelines could lead to severe legal repercussions, reputational damage, and a breach of trust with customers. The temptation to leverage readily available data for quick wins must be weighed against the fundamental right to privacy and the contractual obligations to clients. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach prioritizes data anonymization and explicit consent before utilizing any customer data for performance analysis. This aligns with the principles of data minimization and purpose limitation, which are cornerstones of data privacy regulations. By anonymizing data, the risk of identifying individuals or sensitive business information is significantly reduced, thereby mitigating privacy concerns. Seeking explicit consent ensures transparency and respects the autonomy of the data subjects, fulfilling legal and ethical requirements. This approach demonstrates a commitment to responsible data stewardship and builds trust with clients, reinforcing the professional's role as a guardian of their data. Incorrect approaches analysis. One incorrect approach involves directly analyzing raw customer data without anonymization or consent. This is a direct violation of data privacy principles and likely contravenes regulations such as GDPR, if applicable to the exam's jurisdiction, or similar data protection laws. It exposes sensitive information, increasing the risk of a data breach and potential misuse. This approach demonstrates a disregard for client confidentiality and professional ethics. Another incorrect approach is to proceed with analysis based on an assumption of implied consent. Implied consent is often insufficient for processing sensitive data, and relying on it can lead to regulatory noncompliance. It bypasses the crucial step of obtaining explicit permission, which is a fundamental ethical and often legal requirement for data processing activities. This approach prioritizes convenience over due diligence and client rights. A further incorrect approach is to delay the analysis indefinitely due to fear of noncompliance, without exploring alternative compliant methods. While caution is necessary, inaction can hinder legitimate business objectives and the ability to provide optimal service. A professional should actively seek compliant solutions rather than abandoning the task altogether. This demonstrates a lack of proactive problem solving and a failure to uphold professional responsibilities in a balanced manner. Professional reasoning. Professionals in this role must adopt a risk-based approach to data handling. This involves understanding the data involved, the potential risks associated with its use, and the relevant legal and ethical frameworks. When faced with a situation requiring data analysis, the decision-making process should involve 1. Identifying the data's sensitivity and potential privacy implications. 2. Consulting relevant data privacy policies and regulations. 3. Determining if anonymization is feasible and sufficient. 4. If anonymization is not sufficient or if the data is particularly sensitive, seeking explicit, informed consent from data owners. 5. Documenting all decisions and actions taken regarding data handling. This structured approach ensures that business needs are met, while upholding the highest standards of data privacy and ethical conduct. Question 11. Compliance review shows that a critical business application on a VMware HCI cluster experienced a data corruption event. To restore service rapidly, the IT team is considering restoring data from a recent backup. However, the backup process for this specific application has not consistently adhered to the organization's data sanitization policies for older, non-critical data segments. The pressure is high to bring the application back online within the hour. What is the most appropriate course of action to address the data corruption while upholding compliance and security standards? Option A. Halt the restoration process. Perform a full audit of the backup integrity and compliance with data sanitization policies, and then proceed with a verified, compliant restoration. Option B. Proceed with restoring the backup, but immediately initiate a separate process to review and sanitize any potentially compromised data segments after service is restored. Option C. Restore the backup, prioritizing the most critical data segments first to bring the application online quickly, and address the less critical segments later. Option D. Implement a temporary, unvetted backup solution for the application to restore service immediately, and then address the original backup and data corruption issues offline. The correct answer is B. Proceed with restoring the backup, but immediately initiate a separate process to review and sanitize any potentially compromised data segments after service is restored. Explanation: this scenario presents a common ethical dilemma in IT environments, particularly concerning data privacy and resource allocation within a VMware HCI context. The challenge lies in balancing the immediate operational needs of a critical business function with the long-term implications of data handling and potential regulatory noncompliance. The pressure to restore service quickly can lead to shortcuts that compromise data integrity or security. The correct approach prioritizes adherence to established data handling policies and regulatory frameworks, even if it means a temporary delay in full service restoration. This aligns with best professional practice by ensuring that data is managed securely and compliantly, mitigating risks of breaches, fines, and reputational damage. It demonstrates a commitment to responsible data stewardship, which is paramount in regulated industries. An incorrect approach that involves bypassing standard data sanitization protocols before restoring data from backups, even under pressure, represents a significant regulatory and ethical failure. This could violate data privacy regulations, e.g., GDPR, CCPA, depending on the exam's jurisdiction, by potentially exposing sensitive information or failing to ensure data is handled according to retention and disposal policies. It also breaches professional ethics by prioritizing expediency over security and compliance. Another incorrect approach, such as selectively restoring only the most critical data without a clear, documented process or stakeholder approval, risks data loss and operational disruption in other areas. This can lead to compliance issues related to data completeness and accuracy, and it undermines the principle of transparent and accountable IT operations. A third incorrect approach, which involves creating a new, unvetted backup solution without proper testing or security review, introduces unknown risks and potential vulnerabilities, violating the principle of due diligence and potentially exposing the organization to security threats and compliance violations. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that includes 1. Identifying the core problem and its immediate impact. 2. Consulting relevant policies, procedures, and regulatory requirements. 3. Assessing the risks associated with each potential solution, considering both operational and compliance aspects. 4. Seeking guidance from relevant stakeholders, e.g., legal, compliance management, when faced with ambiguity or conflicting priorities. 5. Documenting the chosen course of action and the rationale behind it. Question 12. The assessment process reveals that a critical business application hosted on a VMware HCI cluster is experiencing intermittent performance degradation, impacting user productivity. Initial observations show high storage latency reported by the application. What is the most effective and professionally responsible approach to diagnose and resolve this issue? Option A. Roll back the HCI cluster to its last known stable configuration to restore application performance, without further investigation into the cause of the degradation. Option B. Focus exclusively on tuning the application's database and query performance, assuming the underlying HCI infrastructure is performing optimally. Option C. Conduct a comprehensive performance analysis of the entire HCI stack, including compute, storage, and network layers, correlating application behavior with infrastructure metrics to identify the root cause before implementing any changes. Option D. Immediately initiate a hardware upgrade for the storage array, as the high latency reported by the application is a clear indicator of storage subsystem failure. The correct answer is C. Conduct a comprehensive performance analysis of the entire HCI stack, including compute, storage, and network layers, correlating application behavior with infrastructure metrics to identify the root cause before implementing any changes. Explanation: scenario analysis. The scenario presents a common challenge in IT operations where performance degradation in a VMware HCI environment directly impacts critical business functions. The professional is tasked with identifying the root cause and implementing a solution under pressure, balancing speed with thoroughness. The challenge lies in distinguishing between superficial symptoms and underlying systemic issues, especially when multiple potential causes exist. This requires a systematic approach to avoid misdiagnosis, which could lead to wasted resources, extended downtime, and potential noncompliance with service-level agreements, SLAs, or internal governance policies. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a methodical, data-driven investigation that prioritizes understanding the entire system's behavior before making changes. This aligns with best professional practices for process optimization in complex IT environments. By analyzing performance metrics across the HCI stack, compute, storage, network, and correlating them with application behavior, the professional can pinpoint the bottleneck. This systematic method ensures that solutions address the actual root cause, leading to sustainable performance improvements and minimizing the risk of introducing new issues. This approach is ethically sound as it prioritizes the integrity and reliability of the IT services supporting the business. Incorrect approaches analysis. One incorrect approach involves immediately implementing a hardware upgrade based on a single observed metric, such as high storage latency. This is a premature and potentially costly solution. It fails to account for other contributing factors like network congestion, inefficient application I/O patterns, or suboptimal VM configurations. This approach risks violating professional due diligence by not exhaustively investigating the problem, potentially leading to unnecessary expenditure and not resolving the actual issue. Another incorrect approach is to focus solely on application-level tuning without considering the underlying infrastructure. While application optimization is important, if the HCI layer is the bottleneck, application-level changes will have limited or no impact. This approach demonstrates a lack of holistic understanding of the system and can lead to wasted effort and prolonged downtime. It also fails to meet the professional obligation to provide effective and efficient solutions. A third incorrect approach is to revert to a previous, known good configuration without proper analysis. While this might offer temporary relief, it bypasses the critical step of understanding why the degradation occurred. This prevents learning from the incident and implementing preventative measures, potentially leading to recurrence of the problem. It represents a failure in proactive problem management and continuous improvement, which are hallmarks of professional IT operations. Professional reasoning. Professionals should adopt a structured problem-solving methodology. This typically involves 1. Defining the problem clearly, including its impact. 2. Gathering data and performing a comprehensive analysis of all relevant system components. 3. Formulating hypotheses about the root cause. 4. Testing hypotheses systematically. 5. Implementing the most effective solution based on evidence. 6. Verifying the solution and documenting the process for future reference and continuous improvement. This structured approach ensures that decisions are informed, efficient, and ethically defensible, prioritizing business continuity and service reliability. Question 13. Governance review demonstrates that the current VMware HCI cluster patching and update process is time-consuming and prone to manual errors, impacting operational efficiency. A proposal has been made to automate the patching process using a custom scripting solution developed in-house, bypassing the standard change management and testing protocols to expedite deployment. Which of the following approaches best addresses this situation while adhering to professional best practices and maintaining operational integrity? Option A. Continue with the manual patching process to avoid any potential risks associated with automation, prioritizing stability over efficiency. Option B. Implement the custom scripting solution immediately to automate patching, as efficiency gains are paramount and the script has been tested by its developer. Option C. Develop a comprehensive automation strategy for patching that includes rigorous testing in a non-production environment, formal change control procedures, stakeholder communication, and a documented rollback plan before production deployment. Option D. Delegate the responsibility of patching to individual cluster administrators, allowing them to implement their preferred automation tools as they see fit. The correct answer is B. Implement the custom scripting solution immediately to automate patching, as efficiency gains are paramount and the script has been tested by its developer. Explanation. This scenario presents a common challenge in IT operations where process optimization efforts, while intended to improve efficiency, can inadvertently introduce risks if not properly governed and aligned with established best practices and regulatory expectations. The challenge lies in balancing the drive for innovation and efficiency with the need for stability, security, and compliance within a VMware HCI environment. Professionals must exercise careful judgment to ensure that proposed optimizations do not violate existing service level agreements, SLAs, introduce security vulnerabilities, or contravene any relevant VMware support policies or industry-standard operational frameworks. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes a structured, risk-aware methodology for implementing changes. By involving stakeholders, conducting thorough impact assessments, and adhering to established change management procedures, the team ensures that optimizations are implemented in a controlled manner. This aligns with the principles of IT governance and operational excellence, minimizing the likelihood of disruptions and ensuring that the HCI environment remains compliant and performant. This methodical approach is crucial for maintaining the integrity and reliability of critical infrastructure. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on rapid implementation without proper validation or stakeholder consultation fails to acknowledge the interconnectedness of the HCI environment and its potential impact on business operations. This can lead to unforeseen downtime, data integrity issues, or security breaches, which are not only operationally detrimental but could also have regulatory implications if they result in noncompliance with data protection or service availability mandates. Another incorrect approach that bypasses established change control processes, even with good intentions, undermines the auditability and accountability of IT operations. This can create a shadow IT environment where changes are not documented, reviewed, or approved, increasing the risk of misconfigurations and making troubleshooting significantly more difficult. Furthermore, an approach that ignores potential compatibility issues with existing software versions or hardware configurations can lead to instability and unsupported states, violating vendor support agreements and potentially exposing the organization to security risks. The professional reasoning process for similar situations should involve a clear understanding of the organization's IT governance framework, risk appetite, and regulatory obligations. Before proposing or implementing any optimization, professionals should ask, what are the potential impacts on service availability, performance, and security? Have all relevant stakeholders been consulted? Does this change align with our established change management policies? What are the rollback procedures if the optimization fails? By systematically addressing these questions, professionals can make informed decisions that balance innovation with operational stability and compliance. Question 14. Consider a scenario where a VMware HCI master specialist is tasked with improving the performance and efficiency of a production environment. The team is under pressure to deliver results quickly, and there's a temptation to immediately deploy the newest VMware features and configurations without a comprehensive understanding of their impact on existing workflows. What is the most professionally sound approach to process optimization in this situation? Option A. Rely on informal discussions and the personal experiences of senior team members to guide the selection and implementation of optimization strategies. Option B. Establish baseline performance metrics, conduct a detailed analysis of current workflows to identify specific bottlenecks, and then implement targeted, phased optimizations with continuous monitoring and validation. Option C. Implement broad, sweeping changes to core HCI components based on general industry best practices without specific analysis of the current environment's unique characteristics. Option D. Immediately deploy the latest VMware HCI features and recommended configurations across the entire environment to leverage the newest advancements. The correct answer is B. Establish baseline performance metrics, conduct a detailed analysis of current workflows to identify specific bottlenecks, and then implement targeted, phased optimizations with continuous monitoring and validation. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent tension between rapid deployment and ensuring robust, compliant, and optimized processes within a VMware HCI environment. The pressure to deliver quickly can lead to shortcuts that compromise long-term stability, performance, and adherence to best practices, potentially impacting service-level agreements and operational efficiency. Careful judgment is required to balance speed with thoroughness. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes a structured, iterative, and data-driven methodology for process optimization. This involves establishing clear baselines, identifying specific bottlenecks through analysis, and implementing targeted changes with measurable outcomes. This aligns with the principles of continuous improvement and operational excellence, ensuring that optimizations are effective, sustainable, and contribute to the overall health and performance of the HCI infrastructure. It also implicitly supports the need for documentation and validation, which are crucial for compliance and knowledge transfer. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on implementing the latest VMware features without a clear understanding of their impact on existing workflows or without establishing performance baselines is professionally unacceptable. This can lead to unintended consequences, performance degradation, and increased complexity, negating any perceived benefits of rapid adoption. It represents a failure to conduct proper due diligence and risk assessment, potentially violating operational guidelines that mandate stability and performance. Another incorrect approach that involves making broad, sweeping changes across the entire HCI environment without granular analysis or phased rollout is also professionally unsound. This Big Bang approach increases the risk of widespread disruption and makes it difficult to isolate the cause of any subsequent issues. It demonstrates a lack of systematic problem solving and can lead to significant downtime, impacting business continuity and potentially violating service-level agreements. This approach fails to adhere to best practices for change management and risk mitigation. A third incorrect approach that relies on anecdotal evidence or the opinions of a few individuals without objective data to guide optimization decisions is professionally deficient. This subjective approach is prone to bias and may not address the actual root causes of performance issues. It undermines the credibility of the optimization effort and can lead to wasted resources on ineffective solutions. This fails to uphold the professional standard of evidence-based decision-making. The professional reasoning framework for such situations involves a systematic approach. 1. Define the problem and desired outcomes clearly. 2. Establish baseline metrics for performance and efficiency. 3. Conduct thorough analysis to identify root causes and potential areas for improvement. 4. Prioritize optimization efforts based on impact and feasibility. 5. Design and implement changes in a controlled, phased manner with rollback plans. 6. Measure the impact of changes against baselines and adjust as necessary. 7. Document all changes and outcomes for future reference and continuous improvement. Question 15. The investigation demonstrates that users are reporting intermittent application slowdowns and increased latency within the VMware HCI environment. The IT operations team needs to optimize the troubleshooting process to identify the root cause efficiently and effectively. Which of the following approaches best aligns with process optimization principles for diagnosing performance issues in a VMware HCI environment? Option A. Immediately begin reconfiguring network switch port configurations and VLAN assignments based on a preliminary suspicion of network congestion. Option B. Escalate the issue directly to VMware support without performing any initial internal diagnostics or data collection. Option C. Initiate a comprehensive review of vCenter server performance metrics, HCI host resource utilization, CPU, memory, network, disk I/O, and vCenter data store performance statistics to identify potential bottlenecks or anomalies. Option D. Focus exclusively on analyzing the performance metrics of individual virtual machines experiencing slowdowns, without examining the underlying HCI hosts or vCenter data store health. The correct answer is A. Immediately begin reconfiguring network switch port configurations and VLAN assignments based on a preliminary suspicion of network congestion. Explanation: Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in IT operations where performance degradation impacts critical business functions. The professional challenge lies in identifying the root cause of performance issues within a complex VMware HCI environment without disrupting ongoing operations or violating established operational procedures and potential service-level agreements, SLAs. The pressure to resolve the issue quickly, coupled with the need for thoroughness and adherence to best practices, requires a systematic and informed approach. The risk of misdiagnosis can lead to wasted resources, extended downtime, and reputational damage. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach focuses on leveraging the inherent diagnostic and monitoring capabilities of the VMware HCI platform itself. This aligns with best professional practice by utilizing the tools and data provided by the vendor, which are designed for this specific environment. By examining vCenter server performance metrics, HCI host resource utilization, and VM-level performance data, a skilled specialist can pinpoint bottlenecks or anomalies. This method is efficient, data-driven, and minimizes the risk of introducing external variables or making assumptions. It directly addresses the process optimization aspect of the exam by seeking to improve the efficiency and effectiveness of troubleshooting. This approach is also compliant with general IT operational best practices, which emphasize using native tools for diagnosis before resorting to external or more intrusive methods. Incorrect approaches analysis. One incorrect approach involves immediately assuming a network issue and reconfiguring network hardware without sufficient evidence. This is a failure of systematic troubleshooting. It bypasses the crucial step of analyzing the HCI environment's internal performance, potentially leading to unnecessary network changes that could disrupt other services. This approach is professionally unsound as it lacks a data-driven basis and risks exacerbating problems. Another incorrect approach is to focus solely on individual virtual machine performance without considering the underlying infrastructure. While VM performance is important, HCI performance is a shared resource. Ignoring the HCI host and vSAN data store health can lead to misattributing issues to the VM when the actual bottleneck lies in the shared storage or compute resources. This is a failure to optimize the overall process by not looking at the system holistically. A third incorrect approach is to immediately escalate to vendor support without performing any initial diagnostics. While vendor support is valuable, a professional is expected to conduct a baseline level of investigation to provide them with relevant data. This premature escalation wastes both the professional's time and the vendor's resources, and it fails to demonstrate due diligence in process optimization. Professional reasoning. Professionals facing such a challenge should adopt a structured, data-driven troubleshooting methodology. This involves 1. Understanding the reported symptoms and their impact. 2. Consulting existing documentation and known issues. 3. Utilizing native monitoring and diagnostic tools to gather objective data. 4. Formulating hypotheses based on the data. 5. Testing hypotheses systematically, starting with the most likely causes. 6. Documenting all steps taken and findings. 7. Escalating with comprehensive data when necessary. This methodical approach ensures efficient problem resolution, minimizes risk, and upholds professional standards. Question 16. Upon reviewing a VMware HCI cluster experiencing intermittent performance degradation impacting critical business applications, what is the most prudent initial step to optimize the process of identifying and resolving the root cause? Option A. Immediately initiate a series of broad network configuration adjustments across the cluster, assuming network latency is the primary bottleneck. Option B. Systematically collect and analyze comprehensive performance metrics and logs from all layers of the HCI stack, compute, storage, network, and correlate them with application-level performance indicators and user-reported symptoms. Option C. Focus solely on reconfiguring storage array parameters, as storage I/O is often the most common cause of HCI performance issues. Option D. Roll back to a previous known stable configuration of the HCI cluster without further investigation into the current state. The correct answer is B. Systematically collect and analyze comprehensive performance metrics and logs from all layers of the HCI stack, compute, storage, network, and correlate them with application-level performance indicators and user-reported symptoms. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in IT operations where a critical infrastructure component, VMware HCI, experiences performance degradation. The professional challenge lies in diagnosing the root cause efficiently and effectively while minimizing disruption to business operations. The pressure to restore service quickly can lead to hasty decisions, potentially overlooking crucial diagnostic steps or regulatory compliance requirements. The complexity of HCI, involving compute, storage, and networking, necessitates a systematic approach to avoid misdiagnosis and further complications. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a structured, data-driven investigation that prioritizes understanding the current state and potential impact before implementing changes. This aligns with best professional practices for incident management and process optimization in regulated environments. By first gathering comprehensive performance metrics and logs from the HCI cluster, the professional can identify anomalies and establish a baseline. Subsequently, correlating these metrics with application-level performance and user-reported issues provides context. This methodical process ensures that any proposed optimization or remediation is based on evidence, minimizing the risk of introducing new problems or violating service-level agreements, SLAs, or compliance mandates. This approach directly supports the principles of operational resilience and due diligence expected in IT service delivery. Incorrect approach is analysis. Implementing immediate, broad-stroke configuration changes without a thorough understanding of the underlying issues is a significant regulatory and ethical failure. This could involve randomly adjusting network parameters or storage policies based on assumptions rather than data. Such actions risk exacerbating the problem, causing further downtime and potentially violating data integrity or availability requirements stipulated by industry regulations or internal policies. Furthermore, making changes without proper documentation or rollback plans demonstrates a lack of due diligence and adherence to change management best practices, which are often implicitly or explicitly required by compliance frameworks. Another incorrect approach would be to focus solely on one component, e.g., only storage, without considering its interaction with other HCI elements, compute, networking. This siloed thinking can lead to misattributing the problem and implementing ineffective solutions, wasting valuable time and resources, and potentially failing to meet performance objectives. Professional reasoning. Professionals facing such situations should adopt a systematic incident response and problem-solving framework. This typically involves 1. Identification and scoping. Clearly define the problem and its impact. 2. Data gathering. Collect all relevant logs, metrics, and configuration details. 3. Analysis. Correlate data to identify root causes and contributing factors. 4. Hypothesis and testing. Formulate potential solutions and test them in a controlled manner if possible or with a clear rollback strategy. 5. Implementation. Apply the validated solution. 6. Verification and monitoring. Confirm the issue is resolved and monitor for recurrence. Throughout this process, adherence to change management procedures, documentation, and communication protocols is paramount, especially in environments subject to regulatory oversight. Question 17. Benchmark analysis indicates a consistent increase in application response times across multiple critical services hosted on a VMware HCI environment. While user-reported issues are varied, the overall trend points to a systemic performance degradation. What is the most effective approach to diagnose and resolve this issue? Option A. Conduct a comprehensive performance analysis of the VMware HCI infrastructure, focusing on identifying bottlenecks in compute, storage I/O, and network latency, and correlate these findings with application-level metrics. Option B. Prioritize addressing individual user complaints by interviewing affected users and implementing localized configuration adjustments on their respective virtual machines. Option C. Initiate a proactive scaling of compute and storage resources across the entire HCI cluster to accommodate potential increased demand, without specific identification of the bottleneck. Option D. Immediately deploy the latest available vendor patches for all components of the HCI stack, as performance issues are often resolved by applying general updates. The correct answer is A. Conduct a comprehensive performance analysis of the VMware HCI infrastructure, focusing on identifying bottlenecks in compute, storage I/O, and network latency, and correlate these findings with application-level metrics. Explanation. This scenario presents a common challenge in IT operations where performance metrics, while indicating an issue, do not pinpoint the root cause. The professional challenge lies in moving beyond superficial observations to a systematic, data-driven investigation that aligns with operational best practices, and by extension, regulatory compliance frameworks that mandate efficient and reliable service delivery. The need for careful judgment arises from the potential for misdiagnosis, leading to wasted resources, prolonged downtime, and potential service degradation, all of which can have regulatory implications if they impact service-level agreements, SLAs, or data integrity. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes a structured, evidence-based methodology. By focusing on identifying bottlenecks within the VMware HCI environment through detailed performance analysis of compute, storage, and network components, It directly addresses the underlying causes of the observed performance degradation. This systematic approach ensures that remediation efforts are targeted and effective, minimizing disruption and maximizing the efficiency of the infrastructure. This aligns with general principles of IT governance and operational excellence, which are often implicitly or explicitly required by regulatory frameworks that emphasize system availability, performance, and data protection. Each incorrect approach fails to meet professional standards due to its lack of rigor and potential for misdirection. Implementing a broad, untested patch without understanding the specific cause of the performance issue is a reactive measure that could introduce new problems or fail to address the actual bottleneck. This bypasses the due diligence expected in managing critical infrastructure and could lead to unintended consequences that violate operational integrity. Similarly, immediately scaling resources without a clear understanding of where the demand is originating or where the constraints lie is inefficient and costly. It assumes a resource deficiency without evidence, potentially masking underlying architectural or configuration issues. This approach is not data-driven and risks over-provisioning, which is a poor use of resources and does not guarantee performance improvement if the bottleneck is elsewhere. Finally, focusing solely on end-user complaints without correlating them to infrastructure metrics ignores the systemic nature of HCI performance. While user experience is paramount, addressing it without a technical investigation can lead to superficial fixes that do not resolve the core infrastructure problem, thus failing to achieve sustainable performance improvements and potentially violating the spirit of operational reliability mandated by regulatory oversight. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a phased approach. First, clearly define and quantify the observed problem using available monitoring tools. Second, hypothesize potential root causes based on the symptoms and the architecture of the system. Third, design and execute targeted investigations to validate or invalidate these hypotheses, collecting specific performance data from relevant components e.g., vCPU utilization, storage latency, network throughput. Fourth, based on validated findings, develop and implement a precise remediation plan. Finally, monitor the impact of the remediation to confirm resolution and prevent recurrence. This iterative, data-driven process ensures that actions are informed, efficient, and aligned with maintaining a robust and compliant operational environment. Question 18. Examination of the data shows that users are experiencing intermittent latency and reduced throughput on the VMware HCI environment during peak operational hours. The system administrators have observed that CPU utilization is frequently high on some hosts, but memory and storage I/O appear within acceptable ranges. The current infrastructure is operating at near full capacity. Which of the following approaches is the most appropriate for addressing these performance degradation issues? Option A. Immediately provision additional compute resources to the HCI cluster to alleviate the observed high CPU utilization, assuming this will resolve the latency and throughput issues. Option B. Implement a broad set of configuration changes across all HCI hosts, including network stack tuning and storage driver updates, based on recent industry best practices without specific correlation to the observed symptoms. Option C. Focus solely on optimizing storage I/O performance by implementing advanced caching mechanisms, despite the data indicating that memory and storage I/O are not the primary constraints. Option D. Conduct a thorough performance analysis to identify specific resource bottlenecks and areas for optimization within the existing configuration, potentially involving workload placement adjustments or tuning of virtual machine parameters. The correct answer is D. Conduct a thorough performance analysis to identify specific resource bottlenecks and areas for optimization within the existing configuration, potentially involving workload placement adjustments or tuning of virtual machine parameters. Explanation. The scenario presents a common challenge in IT operations, balancing performance optimization with resource constraints and potential regulatory implications. The professional challenge lies in identifying the most effective and compliant method to improve VMware HCI performance without introducing unintended risks or violating established guidelines. Careful judgment is required to select an approach that is both technically sound and adheres to the specific regulatory framework governing the exam, which is assumed to be a general IT operational context without specific country-specific regulations, unless otherwise stated. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes a systematic, data-driven, and non-disruptive method for process optimization. This aligns with principles of good IT governance, which emphasize understanding the root cause of performance issues before implementing solutions. By analyzing existing performance metrics and identifying bottlenecks, professionals can ensure that any changes made are targeted and effective, minimizing the risk of introducing new problems or negatively impacting other system functions. This methodical approach also supports auditability and compliance, as decisions are based on evidence and documented analysis. An incorrect approach that involves immediately increasing resource allocation without proper analysis is professionally unacceptable. This is because it represents a reactive, rather than proactive, solution. It can lead to unnecessary expenditure, mask underlying architectural or configuration issues, and potentially violate cost management policies or even resource utilization guidelines if not properly justified. Furthermore, it bypasses the critical step of understanding the actual performance bottlenecks, which is a fundamental aspect of effective process optimization. Another incorrect approach, such as randomly applying configuration changes based on anecdotal evidence or industry trends without specific validation, is ethically and professionally unsound. This can lead to system instability, data corruption, or security vulnerabilities. It demonstrates a lack of due diligence and a disregard for the potential impact on the operational environment and its users. Such actions can also lead to noncompliance with service-level agreements (SLAs) and internal operational standards. The professional reasoning process for making such decisions should involve a structured approach. 1. Understand the problem. Clearly define the observed performance issue. 2. Gather data. Collect relevant performance metrics, logs, and configuration details. 3. Analyze data. Identify the root cause of the performance bottleneck. 4. Propose solutions. Develop potential optimization strategies based on the analysis. 5. Evaluate solutions. Assess each proposed solution for effectiveness, feasibility, risk, and compliance. 6. Implement and monitor. Deploy the chosen solution and continuously monitor its impact. 7. Document. Maintain thorough records of the entire process, including analysis, decision, and outcomes. Question 19. Performance analysis shows a significant and consistent increase in latency for critical virtual machines hosted on a VMware HCI cluster, impacting user experience and application responsiveness. The infrastructure team has been tasked with identifying and resolving the root cause of this performance degradation. Which of the following approaches represents the most professional and effective method for addressing this issue? Option A. Focus solely on optimizing the storage I/O performance of the underlying physical disks, as storage is often the primary cause of latency in HCI environments. Option B. Roll back the most recent cluster-wide software update, as it is the most likely culprit for the performance degradation. Option C. Immediately increase the allocated vCPU and RAM for all virtual machines experiencing latency, assuming a general resource starvation issue. Option D. Conduct a comprehensive performance analysis of the entire HCI stack, including compute, storage, and network layers, correlating metrics with recent configuration changes and known workload patterns to pinpoint the specific bottleneck. The correct answer is C. Immediately increase the allocated vCPU and RAM for all virtual machines experiencing latency, assuming a general resource starvation issue. Explanation. The scenario presents a common challenge in IT infrastructure management, where performance degradation impacts critical business operations. The challenge lies in balancing the immediate need for resolution with the long-term implications of architectural decisions, particularly within the context of VMware HCI. Professionals must consider not only technical solutions, but also their alignment with organizational goals, stakeholder expectations, and adherence to best practices for maintaining a stable and efficient environment. The correct approach emphasizes a systematic, data-driven investigation that prioritizes understanding the root cause of the performance issues before implementing any changes. This involves leveraging VMware's built-in monitoring tools and potentially third-party solutions to gather comprehensive performance metrics across the HCI stack. The focus on identifying bottlenecks, analyzing resource utilization, and correlating these findings with recent changes or events is crucial. This methodical approach ensures that solutions are targeted and effective, minimizing the risk of introducing new problems or exacerbating existing ones. It aligns with professional best practices of proactive problem solving and maintaining system integrity. An incorrect approach would be to immediately implement a broad, unverified solution without a thorough understanding of the underlying cause. For instance, indiscriminately increasing resource allocations, e.g., vCPU RAM, without evidence of a resource constraint can lead to inefficient resource utilization, increased costs, and potentially mask the true issue. Another incorrect approach would be to revert to a previous configuration without a clear understanding of what specific change caused the problem, potentially undoing necessary updates or fixes and introducing instability. A third incorrect approach might involve focusing solely on a single component of the HCI stack without considering its interaction with other components, leading to a fragmented and ineffective resolution. These approaches fail to demonstrate due diligence, risk introducing unintended consequences, and can lead to prolonged downtime or recurring issues, which are professionally unacceptable. Professionals should employ a structured decision-making process that begins with clear problem definition, followed by hypothesis generation, data collection and analysis, solution design and testing, implementation, and finally, validation and monitoring. This iterative process, grounded in evidence and best practices, ensures that decisions are informed, justifiable, and lead to optimal outcomes. Question 20. Process analysis reveals that a VMware HCI master specialist is tasked with designing and deploying a new virtualized infrastructure to support critical business applications. While the project team is focused on achieving high performance and cost efficiencies, there is a concern that regulatory compliance aspects, particularly those related to data handling and residency, might be overlooked in the rush to deploy. What is the most appropriate approach for the VMware HCI master specialist to ensure that regulatory requirements are met throughout the project lifecycle? Option A. Proactively engage legal and compliance teams early in the design phase to identify all relevant regulations and integrate compliance controls into the HCI architecture and deployment plan. Option B. Rely solely on the compliance certifications provided by VMware and its hardware partners without conducting an independent assessment of organizational-specific regulatory needs. Option C. Defer all regulatory compliance considerations to the post-implementation phase, assuming that any necessary adjustments can be made easily once the system is live. Option D. Proceed with the HCI deployment based on technical and financial merits, and address any regulatory compliance issues after the system is operational. The correct answer is A. Proactively engage legal and compliance teams early in the design phase to identify all relevant regulations and integrate compliance controls into the HCI architecture and deployment plan. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in IT infrastructure projects where a critical technology like VMware HCI is being implemented. The challenge lies in balancing the immediate operational needs of the business with the long-term strategic goals and the need for robust, compliant infrastructure. Stakeholders often have differing priorities, and a master specialist must navigate these to ensure the solution meets not only functional requirements, but also regulatory and security mandates. The pressure to deliver quickly can sometimes lead to shortcuts that compromise compliance or introduce future risks, making careful judgment paramount. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach prioritizes a comprehensive assessment of the existing regulatory landscape and the specific requirements of the VMware HCI implementation. This involves engaging with legal and compliance teams to understand all applicable regulations, e.g., data privacy laws, industry-specific compliance standards, and ensuring the HCI design and deployment adhere to these. This proactive, compliance-first strategy is best professional practice because it mitigates legal and financial risks, builds trust with stakeholders by demonstrating due diligence, and ensures the long-term viability and security of the HCI environment. It aligns with the ethical obligation to implement solutions responsibly and within legal boundaries. Incorrect approach is analysis. One incorrect approach involves proceeding with the HCI deployment based solely on performance and cost-benefit analyses without a thorough review of regulatory compliance. This is professionally unacceptable because it disregards legal obligations, potentially exposing the organization to significant fines, reputational damage, and operational disruptions if noncompliance is discovered. It violates the ethical duty to act with integrity and to protect the organization from foreseeable harm. Another incorrect approach is to defer all compliance considerations to the post-implementation phase, assuming that remediation will be straightforward. This is professionally unsound as it creates a reactive rather than proactive stance. Regulatory requirements are often complex and deeply embedded in system design. Attempting to retrofit compliance later can be prohibitively expensive, technically challenging, or even impossible, leading to a failure to meet legal mandates and ethical responsibilities. A third incorrect approach is to rely on vendor claims of compliance without independent verification or tailoring to the specific organizational context. While vendors provide valuable information, their solutions must be configured and operated in a manner that meets the organization's unique regulatory obligations. Blindly trusting vendor assurances without due diligence is a failure of professional responsibility and can lead to noncompliance, as the ultimate accountability rests with the deploying organization. Professional reasoning. Professionals should adopt a risk-based approach, starting with a clear understanding of the regulatory environment relevant to the organization and the specific data being handled by the HCI solution. This involves early and continuous engagement with legal, compliance, and security teams. The decision-making process should involve 1. Identifying all applicable regulations. 2. Assessing the impact of these regulations on HCI design, deployment, and operation. 3. Integrating compliance requirements into the project plan from the outset. 4. Documenting all compliance-related decisions and justifications. 5. Establishing ongoing monitoring and auditing processes to ensure sustained compliance. This systematic approach ensures that technical solutions are not only functional, but also legally sound and ethically responsible.